Join me and Gary Prady today on the Low Code Revolution to learn about the Power Virtual Agent's evolution and how it's changing the game for Fusion bot development. Hey everyone, welcome to the Low Code Revolution. I'm April Dunnam, and today we're joined by Gary Prady, the Principal Program Manager for Conversational AI here at Microsoft. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you. So excited to have you here. So from what I understand, you and the Conversational AI team have been really hard at work at some updates to Power Virtual Agents. So would you mind sharing a little bit about the evolution of Power Virtual Agents and how it's really changing the landscape for Fusion development and bot building?
Yeah, sure. So I guess firstly, just to touch on a couple of the key things that we'll talk about today. So we've announced some significant updates at Build, where we are making Power Virtual Agents the bot building platform for citizen developers and pro developers alike. So we're really bringing together that idea of a Fusion team, and we are laser focused at making sure that all of those disciplines can really collaborate using Power Virtual Agents to build their bots. So I guess the best thing to do is to start looking at what the as is today in terms of Power Virtual Agents. So Power Virtual Agents today has the native Power Virtual Agents canvas, which, as everybody knows, has an incredibly intuitive, friendly canvas for you to build your bots with. Ideal for low-code users of all disciplines in terms of getting started, right? Incredibly intuitive and very easy to build some awesome bots with that. On the other side of things, we also have Azure Bot Framework Composer, which is more aimed at the pro developer market, which gives you a bit more flexibility, it gives you more power, the ability to use code to build your bots out. But it comes with some downsides when you compare it to PVA. So things like PVA is a SaaS service. So you have all of the sort of complexity of provisioning and managing resources handled for you. Whereas with Bot Framework Composer, it's more platform as a service. So you need to be managing those resources and sort of provisioning everything yourself. It also, we don't necessarily have the super intuitive canvas. There's quite a learning curve when it comes to Bot Framework Composer. And so what we are aiming to do is to bring these two canvases together in the evolution of Power Virtual Agents. And we are delighted to announce a brand new unified authoring canvas built from the ground up. As I said, it targets citizen developers, pro developers, and everyone in between into a single canvas, which is just incredible.
Well, this is super exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what exactly this new unified kind of canvas authoring experience looks like, and seeing those worlds come together for kind of one holistic place to build bots. So you have a little bit more you can show us maybe about what some of these new features looks like that were added to this through this unified experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into a few of the features on the authoring canvas itself. So firstly, one thing that we've heard from our users for a long time is they want to be able to build rich responses, rich and multimodal responses. So adding things like images and videos, and it's been possible, but you've had to really sort of stretch the boundaries of what PVA can do, start to combine it with Power Automate. So we're announcing a new rich responses capability that allows you to add cards, images, videos, even alternative responses that will get picked at random when the bot talks. So if you talk to the bot more than once, then it's going to feel more natural and more engaging. We've also rebuilt the variable system, and it's now entirely based on PowerFx, which means that you get the low-code Excel-like formula language that's used elsewhere in the Power Platform, now powering everything within Power Virtual Agents, allowing you to assign values to variables. You can now assign values to variables anytime rather than having them tied to specific nodes. And you'll see later on when I do a demo how this also impacts things like adaptive card authoring for dynamic cards. We're also expanding the record types as well, and enabling some things that you'll be familiar with if you've used Bot Framework Composer. So things like list variables and the ability to loop over a list as well, which obviously as a pro developer, the pro developers out there will be very familiar with that need. We're enabling you to code side by side, so between the visual editor and the YAML that sits behind your topic. That means that you can now share parts of your topics or even entire topics between bots and between developers incredibly easily, simply by copying and pasting that code. And then later on, we'll be delivering event-driven and contextual triggers. This is a really cool feature that Bot Framework Composer users have had access to for a long time. And we're delighted to bring it to PVA, combining it with that intuitive canvas, where you can respond to external events or even changes in intent, where a user, naturally humans will interrupt a conversation and will slightly change their intent. If I say to you, hey, what's your social security number? You might reply to me, oh, I don't remember, where do I find that? And, when you're building a bot, everything is, pretty sequential, but now we can actually use these contextual triggers to allow somebody to interrupt that conversation, handle that interruption, and then pick right back up where we left off. And then finally, as you'll see in a few minutes, we've made a bunch of productivity improvements and IA improvements to the canvas as well. The second announcement alongside the unified authoring canvas is that we're really unlocking the power of voice, and this really is a big deal. So you can now attach a phone number to your Power Virtual Agents bot in just a couple of minutes, and I'll show you how quick and simple that is later on. You can take advantage of all of the voices that are powered by Microsoft Cognitive Services. All of those awesome, supernatural neural voices that sound just so realistic. And we can even connect you to things like contact centers, existing contact centers, to route people to live agents when needed. And we'll be adding even more later on. So things like the ability to mark a message as uninterruptible. So if you've got important terms and conditions that users must hear, you'll have granular control over how your bot works over voice. So this is just a really exciting time for us.
Yeah, definitely. So much to unpack there. I mean, the voice alone is going to unlock so many customer service scenarios, for bot use. And then I'm very happy to see the PowerFx being pushed out into Power Virtual Agents as well, and being propagated across more of the Power Platform solutions. So we don't have to worry about learning one kind of language for writing our functions inside of the Power Platform. So with everything that you just showed, lots to unpack. Do you have a demo of the new unified authoring experience that you can show us?
Yeah, I absolutely do. So let's dive right in. And the first thing that we'll look at is the unified authoring canvas. So I've got a basic bot here that I've created in our technology preview, which we announced at Build, and you're able to sign up for today, and we'll have details on that later on. So what I'm going to do is take this opportunity to build a pretty basic topic, but one that would have required a lot of Bot Framework Composer usage and more pro developer type tasks. So I'm going to call it date difference. And in this scenario, it's a pretty arbitrary scenario, but hopefully it will show off some of our new features. I'm going to build a topic that will allow me to accept 2 dates from a user and then calculate the difference between them. So the first thing I want to do is ask a question. Now, we've had an awesome question node in PVA for some time. And so I'm going to use this to ask the user for the first date that they'd like to identify. The first thing that you'll notice is previously on a question node, you would have had a variable created for you, but that variable was then tied to that node. You couldn't really use it anywhere else. You now have the ability to reuse variables or create brand new variables, as I'm doing here. So here I'm going to give this a name, date 1. And the next thing I want to do is ask the user for the second date. And for that, I can actually use one of our productivity improvements. You'll see up here that we've got a much expanded toolbar. So I can actually just copy that entire node, and now I can paste it. And I can even do this between topics as well, which is incredibly useful. So here I can just update the message. And as I said, I can reuse that date 1 variable. But here, obviously, I want to update this to be date 2. The other thing that I'll point out here is that you can manage from this updated variable pane. You can see where the variable is used, but you will also notice that if I, let me just open that again. Let me turn this to global. Right. So if I make this a global variable, one thing you've never been able to do in Power Virtual Agents before is actually choose to carry a variable between sessions. Now, I'm not going to do it here, but I wanted to call this out. If I interact with a bot multiple times, this means that you can remember information about me as a user. So, for example, if the first time I interact with the bot, you ask me for my preferred name, we can actually remember that for future sessions. So that's an incredibly useful feature that I wanted to call out that people can, potentially try. For now, we're going to keep this as a topic variable, though, and we'll carry on. So we've asked our 2 questions, we've created our 2 variables, and we've collected our 2 dates. The next thing I want to do is actually calculate the difference between those 2 dates. And to do that, I can now use PowerFx, as we were talking about before, and the new set of variable value node. And this is completely new for Power Virtual Agents. So here I can choose to either reuse one of the variables that we've got, but again, I'll create a new one, and I'm going to call it days, right? Because we're going to calculate the number of days difference between the 2 of them. And instead of, I could choose to assign the value to one of my other variables, maybe even one of the new system variables that we've now got as well, that give you access to things like what channel is the user using, what is the username that's coming through on that channel, which again is incredibly useful. I'm actually going to use PowerFx and the new integrated formula editor to calculate this date. So here I can say date diff. I get access to all of the built-in functions. And I get full validation. So I can go, okay, topic.date1 and then topic.date2. And as soon as I do that, that validates my code, says, yep, that's valid. I can click insert, and that's it. My variable is set. Now, previously, in Power Virtual Agents, you simply couldn't do this. You could not arbitrarily assign values to variables, and you certainly couldn't use PowerFx. So this is a big leap forward, even though the scenario here is relatively straightforward. The last thing I want to do is send a message, and I'm going to say something along the lines of, the number of days difference is, and I can insert the variable that we've just created. So let's go and do that. Now I'm going to save it, and we'll just give this topic a quick test. Okay, so let's try this. So we'll trigger our topic using our trigger phrase, date diff. It asks me for the date, so I'm going to say tomorrow. Using our NLP, we can use terms like tomorrow or next Monday. And it comes back correctly and says the number of days difference is 2. So relatively simple scenario, but even there, we've seen some, incredible new power that is now available and really lowers the barrier to entry to do some of these things for users.
Wow.
Sorry.
So I was going to say, sorry, I'm having a mind blown moment here. That was really amazing. Just being able to do that using PowerFx easily, being able to put in the natural language as well, not having to put in a date format, being able to say tomorrow or the next day, and able to recognize that and do the calculation thanks to PowerFx, all without having to leave the PVA interface is just amazing. So this is awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah, no, honestly, we're so pleased with how this has turned out, and we think that users are going to be able to build so much more sophisticated bots, regardless of your level of experience. Another one I wanted to point out, and a way that we can really improve the scenario that we've just built, is it's fine for me to use a simple message to output the number of days difference, but wouldn't it be great if I could use an adaptive card to display this information in a richer way? Well, the good news is I can do that now very easily. So what I can do here is I can use the new add menu. So this is the new rich responses capability that we spoke about earlier. So I could choose images or video or a basic card, but here I'm going to choose an adaptive card. What I can do then is I can just paste the JSON for my adaptive card straight into the canvas. Now, what I've done is I've already been over at the adaptive cards designer, and I've designed this card, where I have placeholders for date 1, date 2, and the number of days. But I think you'll agree it's a bit better of a way to display this information. So switching back, I can now simply paste that JSON straight into the designer. And once I've done that, that's great. I could go ahead and use that to display a static card. However, I want to include my variables, right? Topic.date1, topic.date2. And to do that is super straightforward as well. And we've combined adaptive cards with the power of PowerFx. So I can choose to switch to the formula mode. And just like that, my adaptive card JSON is converted to a PowerFx formula, which means I can now add variable references. I can even use functions from PowerFx to format my data. Now, in the interest of time, I have prepared a version of this record, which I'm going to paste in here. And now that I've done that, you can see here that I am displaying my topic.days variable, but I'm also displaying my date variables. Now, by default, they would be written out in a long date format with the time, but I'm using the text function and the date time formatting to actually format them as short dates for date 1 and for date 2. So let's close that. Let's delete our original message because we don't need that now. And let's save the topic and we'll give that a quick test.
Well, I love this. Being able to put adaptive cards is something that I know everyone has been asking for a while, and we use it in Power Automate so much with our workflows and stuff, and posting those adaptive cards to teams and things like that. So being able to have this in our bots as well is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, and we think the workflow is incredibly straightforward and very rapid. Right, you saw how quickly there I was able to take a card that I designed over in the designer, bring it in, convert it to a record, and immediately have something that's dynamic and ready to use on my canvas. So I'm going to try the same dates that I tried before, and there you have it, a dynamic adaptive card added to the canvas in just a minute, all combined with the power of PowerFx. So we're incredibly pleased with this.
For sure. I mean, the PowerFx integration there is amazing. If you're already building Canvas applications and perhaps you're familiar with those formulas already, you can just start using those in these adaptive cards and inside of PVA and get started. It's great stuff.
Yeah. So now let's take a quick look at the telephony capabilities. So I have a bot here, a similar bot, and I've got a flight status topic. But I wanted to show you how straightforward it is to attach an existing phone number to this bot. So I can just head over to the channels page, and I can select the new telephony preview channel, where I can choose to connect an existing number. I simply select my Azure subscription, my Azure Communication Services resource, and then I'm presented with a list of phone numbers that are available for me to add to my bot. I can select the number that's available, hit connect, and that is literally it. Within just 30 seconds, the number is available. I could call this bot now and test the scenario that we built before. Not only that, but we've also added a new speech settings page where I can now select from one of the available neural fonts powered by the speech service, and even choose from one of the speaking styles. So if I'm, for example, I could use customer service if this bot is designed or intended to be called as a customer service phone line for an organization. So hopefully that really, demonstrates how quickly you can get going with telephony. The last piece, yeah, and really just to sort of bring this home, let's take another quick look at our adaptive card node that we built earlier on. So if we just flip back to this, you'll notice here that there's a new drop down in the top right hand side. The adaptive card's great, but it's not going to work that well over telephony. So we've now even added multimodal authoring capabilities directly into the canvas, where I can add one or more message variations. So I can say, the number of days difference is, and maybe I want to have, a dramatic pause before I, announce the number of days. And I can even now include speech synthesis markup language, or SSML, to really control how my bot works over voice. So I could insert a break tag, and I could set the strength of that break tag, and then I can insert, just as I would do with any other message, my variable. And just like that, hopefully you've seen how we've made it possible for absolutely anyone, regardless of your skill level, to build a telephony-enabled bot or a bot that works over more traditional channels like web chat, but to use the power of the richer authoring capabilities, the new variable system, to make this the Microsoft bot platform for citizen developers and pro developers alike.
Wow, Gary, this is really game changing. I think this is going to really blow a lot of people's minds. So for those watching that really want to get started with building bots with this new kind of evolution of PVA and the bot building experience, do you have any information on how they could get started?
Yeah, sure. So first thing I want to call out is we have a new limited time pricing offer available for new Power Virtual Agents users. This has been available from April 1st and is available right through September 2022, and dramatically lowers the barrier to entry for people who want to get started using Power Virtual Agents. So you can see there that your sort of base cost would be $200 and then your add-ons would be $100, a significant reduction from the previous prices. So I would encourage you to check those out. And then finally, if you're looking to learn more about these announcements that we've talked about, plus a whole load more, please do check out our sessions that we had at Build, both our breakout and our on-demand. There's a ton of learning resources and other resources that you can see there that we've listed there on the right-hand side. But really the main takeaway for today is to head over to aka.ms/PVA Build 22. That's where you can find our blog post that talks about all of these announcements, and most importantly, how you can get hands-on with them right now using our technology preview.
Well, again, this is amazing, Gary. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Make sure you check out all of those resources that he provided. Take advantage of that special pricing offer as well, and start building bots with the new PVA Unified Bot Building Experience. Thank you so much, Gary, and we'll see you next time on the Low Code Revolution.